Hey, hey, my loves. Welcome to the Dynamic Effect podcast. This is your coach, Coach Kimmie Young here from the Grand Oaks, Sacramento, California. Thanks for joining me today with the Dynamic Effect podcast. It's so great to have each and every one of you here with me. So we are here with episode number 5. Woohoo, the big 5. How exciting. Because every week I get to find a little bit more content and a little bit more information that I really want to share with you all as you're learning, I'm learning, and it's a win-win situation. So thanks for joining me here today. All right, episode number 5. What do I want to talk about today? I want to talk about willingness. Willingness is the key. Here we are with the dynamic effect. Willingness is key. All right. So, as a coach, I obviously taken some courses on coaching. I would hope so, right? Since I'm coaching people. But I've taken actually a lot of coaching courses and um, a lot of coaching classes and coach with some great professionals in the area of life coaching. And it's so many different niches that people have when it comes to coaching. So it's not one particular thing. For instance, there's a great niche for working with women of a certain of a category. You can work with men, you can work with children or teenagers, you can work with people that have PTSD, people that are recovering from cancer, people that are still going through cancer. So it's so many things in life coaching that you're learning about and that you are constantly, if you're a life coach, you're growing about new things that how they affect the mind. But one thing stays consistent in all of coaching is that your client that you have needs to be willing. And even as a coach, you have to go through a point where you have to be willing. We believe that in coaching, you can't take clients to a place that you've never been yourself. And so, what that means is that as I'm coaching each and every one of you, and as I'm coaching my clients, right, give me this 20, 25 minutes just to coach you real quick, is that you have to be willing. Therefore, I'm willing. I'm willing to teach you all if you are willing to listen. But when we sit down in coaching sessions, we have to really narrow in on life's willingness to do different things. And I want to give you a couple examples today of what willingness looks like in people's lives and how it can have a positive and or a negative effect on your life. Let me give you one example. So I have a cousin who is pregnant. And I know she doesn't mind me sharing the story because she publicly posted about this story afterwards. But my cousin is pregnant and she is still having a very difficult pregnancy, just a lot of complications, but nothing that I know for sure she won't overcome and come out with a very healthy, a well child. But in the processes of all of this, she is starting to just feel like any woman, just the hormones, the sluggishness, the tiredness, just the overwhelmingness. You add COVID-19 to that, and there's just so many things that's going on. But what she really wants to do is she really wants to be healthy. And me being a coach that deals with meal planning and having coached clients in the area of meal planning, she reached out to me and she gave me this long text message. And the text message just explained all of her health conditions, what she's going through, how she's feeling, and her ask. And her ask was that I need you to see if you could help me. Let me know if you could help me come up with a meal plan for this type of dietary needs. How would that look like for me? What would I do? How would I continue on this journey to be healthy for the sake of a good pregnancy? And I read through the text message, and the first thing that I wanted to think to myself was, this is a lot of work, right? Because even though you're dealing with meal planning, it's not just I can just give you a standardized meal now, but now I have to look at your needs, your health, your particular health needs. I have to look at the fact that you're pregnant. I have to look at your energy level. I have to look at how many other, like, I have to look at the whole structure before I really want to build you out a plan and work with you, for coaching you through meal planning. So in a split second to myself, I thought, gosh, this could really be a lot of work and this could be overwhelming. But that's not what I did. That's not what I thought about. And that's not what I allowed my mind to go to. So I put myself in a position to be willing. Now, without even knowing this, my cousin caught on to it in my reply. So what I said to her was, thank you for contacting me. This sounds like a challenge. It sounds like a great opportunity. Nevertheless, I am willing. Period. Send. That's all I did. I mean, her paragraph was so long and mine was so small, right? In that moment of time, mine was so small to me, but it was so big to me because what I was truly saying was that I'm tired. I have a lot of things going on in my life. I have my children, I have my husband, I have work, and I have clients, right? And keep in mind that my cousin is not a client of mine, right? I have a special place for her in my heart because she's family, but she's not a client of mine. So I did not look at her through the lens as like I'm looking through a client. I just thought there's so many other things going on. But at the end of this sentence, I put, nevertheless, I am willing. And I sent it off. And then she replied back, right? And it was great. So this is what we'll do. This is what I need. This is what can be done. And what would you like to do? And when would you like to meet? Right? We started going through this whole thing. And inside of me started to change. It was like, she really needs this. It's a resource that I have. Let me sit here and exchange messages, exchange information, and get her what she needs. And I even think that day we settled it. Like, we came up with what she would do, who she would reach out to, the type of program that she would get on, what would help her in this journey. And she was just like so excited. And I was excited that I really did take the time to do this. And the very next day, I saw a post on Facebook. And this is when I knew that coaching had truly set in for me, and I've walked through what I'm giving my clients. Her post on Facebook read something to the effect. She actually did a video on Facebook. Let me correct that. She did a video. That's how much it really touched her. But she was telling everyone how she had reached out to her cousin, myself, needing help, advice, and guidance and direction on setting up a meal plan and how much work it was going to be. But she noticed that at the end of the message that I sent to her, it said, nevertheless, I am willing. Right. And truly what I think it said, it just said, I am willing. I hadn't even got to the nevertheless part. That's true. That is what I do say to people. But what I do say is, I'm willing. And so she goes, and at the end of this message, she said to me, I'm willing. And it truly opened up my eyes, right? And she's talking on this video about how my willingness to help her truly changed her outlook on life and her willingness to do things in life. When we don't feel capable or able to do some things, we just have to be willing. We're not asking anything else of you, but just to be willing. And that is what she picked up from that conversation. And to me, it was truly awesome because that is what I was going for. Was, I don't want you to hear me say yes, like a big loud yes. I don't really need you to hear me say no or a really small no. What I need for you to know is that I am willing, because I am truly willing to help you. I might have a lot of things going on in life. I might not have anything going on in life, but yet I am willing. And so from that, we both grew. And I knew that when she posted it, it was really heartfelt and special to me because coaching in that area, what I want people to know is that you just need to be willing. I have a whole list of clients that I work with. And from the list that I work with and from people that I talk to, I can tell you the most successful clients that I have are clients that say, Kimmie, I'm not for sure of the process. I'm not for sure of the steps. If you can get me just there, I'm willing. I'm willing to get there. I'm willing to do the steps. I'm going to trust the process because many of people have done the process before. A lot of things in life, as I'm told, because I'm not that old, still a young chick here, right? Is that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There is truly nothing new under the sun. So there's no reason for us ladies to feel like we need to reinvent the wheel for everything. Some things are going to be new. There are some new great technologies, there are some new great advances in the world, but some things are just the same. How Big Mama did it, how your grandmother did it, how your Nana did it, and how your mom did it, and how you do it could be very well the same. Now, there could be a time where things do actually change. So let me tell you this one story as I think about this is when things probably need to change. All right. Is there's a grandmother and there's a mom and a daughter. And a daughter and a mom are cooking and they have this ham, big old ham, and they have this pan and they're cutting it in half to bake it. Right. And the daughter says, "Why are we cutting this in half?" And mom says, "Well, we have to. We just have to. That's the way we've always done it. We have to cut the ham in half and we have to put it into the pan." And the daughter says, "But come on, it just doesn't make any sense. You can't just keep telling me that we have to do things the way that we've always been doing them. What's the point of this?" She goes, "I don't know. We'll call grandma and ask her." So they call up grandma and they say, "Grandma, me and mom are cooking this ham and she's cutting it in half to put it into this pan. And I don't understand why. And she keeps telling me this is the way things have to be. We have to do it this way. I want to do it a different way." And grandma says, "Well, um, you don't have to do it that way." And she said, "Well, what do you mean, mom? That's the way you did it. Your mom did it and your mom's mom did it." And she said, "No, baby girl. The only reason why I cut the ham in half is because the size of the pan is all that would fit." Right? So let that sink in for a minute. We're doing things like the same way. And it's okay to do things the same way if that's what life is supposed to be. Like if the ham is supposed to be cut in half because the purpose of cutting in half, no matter the size of your pan, then fine, cut it in half. But if we're just doing things the same way, but there is room for change, let that change be. And are you willing to understand that there could be room for change or that there could be room for the same thing? It's all about your perspective of how you see things. But you can't see things in a different light unless you are willing. Michael Phelps said something very important when he received his Olympic medals, the many of them that he said. The difference between people that are successful and unsuccessful is people that are willing to be out of their comfort zone. People that take a chance, people that are willing to be outside their comfort zone, and people that take a chance. That means every day when he got up to go swimming at 3 a.m., he was willing, right? He wanted to see a change. The willingness was there. Are you just willing to change one little thing about your life? It doesn't have to be a real loud yes. It doesn't have to be a real loud no. It doesn't have to be a really small, faint voice. I just need to know if you're willing. Because if you're willing, I can work with you. If you're willing, your relationships could last longer. If you're willing to consider some things in life, you will have some great opportunities that will yet present themselves to you. I love being able to teach this to my children because sometimes, if really it starts when we're young people, we're always told everything has to be this way and that direction, and it has to be like this. right? We're told that boys have to be in blue and girls have to be in pink. So when you say, oh, you could put a little boy in salmon or a girl in orange, right? There, everybody's mind is just like, what? Is that okay to do? I challenge my oldest one all the time. He says, this is how it's supposed to be. You can only like, this is what it is, and it can't be any different. He challenged me the other day that he was wearing a wristband for 6 months. He says, I was wearing this wristband, been wearing it for 6 months. Now I'm breaking out. I said, son, no, you haven't. You've been wearing the wristband for about 2 months. And so it just started a whole conversation. No, it's been 6 months. It's been 6 months, mom. I said, no, son, it's been about 2 months and I've seen the band on and off of your hand. But he was so adamant. I mean, he was ready to tell me the date he got it, where he got it from, but he really couldn't recall. But he was adamant that it was 6 months that he's had this band on his wrist. Me knowing my kids, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you the fact that I know that you weren't wearing the band for 6 months because I know the things that you're consistent. You're 13 and you can barely keep a watch on for 2 hours. So I know you didn't have this band on for 6 months. I'm not going to argue with you over that. So I just, in the middle of the conversation, I said, Clay, let me ask you a question. He said, oh, here we go again. I said, no, let me ask you a question. Are you willing to consider that maybe, just maybe, you haven't had that band on for 6 months? Are you just willing to consider it? He said, well, I don't know. I said, no, that's not how this works. You either give me a yes or you give me a no. Are you willing to just consider just a little bit that maybe it was 5 months or 4 months, maybe two, maybe it was 7 months. I don't know. Are you willing to consider that it probably wasn't 6 months? He says, well, I don't know. It just seems like it. I said, so are you afraid that you might be wrong? Because what willingness does is willingness really exposes us to the elements of what is about to happen in life. If I am ready for a new job, if I'm ready for a change in a relationship, if I'm ready to become a parent, right? I'm going to have to expose myself to this newfound idea that this is something that I want to do. And truly, what it is, it's a set in our mind of fear. Like, I fear I won't be a good parent. I fear I won't be a good boss. I fear I won't be a good employee. Or I fear I might get a boss that doesn't like me. And I have a great boss now. I fear there's so many different things in our mind that starts taking over. But once we open up ourselves and we release and say, I'm willing to consider this other side that I've just learned about or that I've been exposed to, then what you're really saying is, I open myself up for change. And so if you're not opening yourself up for change, you have to ask why. Why aren't you willing to consider that there is a better way of doing this? Why won't you consider that this could have been the timeline that you had the band on? You would have to almost consider yourself wrong. And we don't want to do that because we never want to seem wrong about anything. We always want to seem right about it. And this is truly when my relationship with my husband began to change, is that we just would like tit for tat. Like, I have to be kind of a right person. Like, I'll research it. I need to be right. If the research proves that I'm wrong, I can try and find the research to make me seem right about it. I just need a little bit. And I'm right. Right. And then I stepped back from that as I started to coach and I really started to learn willingness in my life, is that I'm willing to consider that, number one, for the sake of the conversation, this argument's not worth it. Number two, I'm willing to consider that I'm wrong. Wow. To me, that's really deep. I'm willing to consider that I'm wrong because only two things could happen. I end up being wrong, and that's okay. Or I end up being right, and that's okay. But nothing changes, right? I just have to be willing to expose myself. So I am willing to consider all possibilities. After my son really thought about it, he says, Okay, I'm willing to consider it, Mom. I'm just willing to consider it. I said, great. So you're not saying yes, you're not saying no. You're just willing to consider it has been 6 months. So we went back through our Facebook photos and we went a couple months back and you didn't have the band on. And then we went a little bit further back just to show him he didn't have the band on. So for about 4 months back, he didn't have the band on. And then I said, remember that time I saw the band on the countertop? You didn't have it on then. And he goes, I said, that was just like a couple weeks ago. And he goes, oh. I said, but did it change anything in your world that you were wrong? And he said, no, not really. I just was wrong. And I said, right. But you saved yourself a lot of argument and conviction by just saying, I'm willing to consider that I didn't have this band on for 6 months. And so that's just a little lesson. But in life, I told my cousin, I'm willing. And it opened up my possibilities. It opened up my possibilities, one, if I had the intention of making her a client. All right. The time I spent with her is the time of love and a passion that I have for my family. So we talk those things through. But she knows that if ever in need of a meal planner, of a life coach for herself or for anyone else, she's always a return client because I'm willing. Right? It opened up opportunities for me to be able to research more about meal planning so that when I do work with my clients, I'm very resourceful and strategic about how I set up their meal plans. That's very important to me. And that came from my willingness to help her. There were some great things that I learned on my path to that. So when you are willing to consider that something can be a different way, when you're willing to consider that something can be changed, when you're willing to consider that maybe, just maybe, you're wrong about something, you're on to great opportunities. Because ultimately, in the end, it truly doesn't matter. When we see things from different perspectives, when we're willing to consider that there's a different way of doing things, our world completely opens up. Because what it does is it shows you both sides of a world where you think this is my side, this is their side, and they're on their side, I'm on mine, and that's just what it is. That's like where we are right now with politics. I'm right and you're wrong. Period, point blank. There is no middle ground. There is no sacred place. There is no coming together in liveliness. It's just your side versus my side, the blue versus the red, the elephant versus the donkey or the goat, whatever it is in politics, religion, and life, is that your perspective, I'm willing to consider that what you're saying could be a very valid point. I'm willing to consider that I don't know it all. And I'm willing to consider that there's a different way of going about this. And that opens me up to possibilities. I'm a very strategic learner. So for me, it's very important that I always stay in mindfulness of willingness, because strategic means there's a path to be taken and I can tell you I can tell you the end goal. I can tell you how to get there. I can line it up all in my mind. I'm very good about this. It is my number one strength, being strategic. So because of that, I can just go through something so quickly and everybody else just kind of get left behind. It does make me a leader. But what doesn't make me a good leader is if I'm not willing to listen to what the other people say. If I don't have willingness as a leader, then people get left behind. That doesn't make me a good leader. It doesn't make me a good leader if I have to do all the work on my own because I'm not doing anything but working. I don't believe in that to that level, right? If there's other people to help you, let them help you. Are you willing to change your mind and the way you do things? I am willing. And are you willing to have a different perspective of on life? One of the great things that I love about this Mimi or little quote, for those of you that are not viewing me, but you're on the podcast, it's one gentleman that's pointing to the number 6, and the 6 is his direction. And then there's another gentleman that's pointing to the same, what would seem number to him, but he's really upside down. To him, forward facing is the number 9. So to one guy, he sees a number 6, and to another guy, he sees the number 9, but they're viewing the exact same number. And it says, just because you are right does not mean I'm wrong. You just haven't seen life from my side. And that really does hit home for willingness is the key because I'm willing to consider that you're seeing a nine. You tell me you see a nine, I'm willing to consider it. Doesn't make me right, it doesn't make me wrong. And I'm telling you that I see a six. It doesn't make you right, it doesn't make you wrong. I'm just willing to consider. When you have willingness as part of one of the key ingredients to your life, so many doors will be open because you don't know what's behind a door until you are willing to open it. If you have 10 doors and you just pass along all of them and say, I'll just go to the 10th door because I'm not willing to open up these other nine, you could have missed out on some great opportunities at door number 4 and door number 7 and door number 8, right? You never know what's there. But if you are willing to consider that there might be some change, if you're okay with knowing that you can be wrong, if you're okay with knowing that you could be right, it's so important to grasp onto the fact of willingness. So, in your next conversation with someone, in your next argument or debate, or your next meeting that you have, and your boss says, I really want you to do this task, and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. Just be willing. You never know what's on the other side of that. You never know what promotional opportunities could come. You never know in a relationship when you say, you know what, I'm willing, the endless amount of support that you'll get from your partner, all because you were willing. All right. So think about that. Be willing to see the change and be willing to make sure that the key of willingness is a part of your everyday language. I am willing. If you want to coach with me and you want to learn more about willingness, I really encourage you to reach out for me. Reach out to me. It's www.kimmieyoung.com, or you can email me service@kimmieyoung.com. Check me out at Facebook at Dynamic Kimmie, Instagram at Dynamic Kimmie, and you can also find us right here on YouTube at Kimmie Young. Thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast. I hope you learned some great tools and resources today to help you find out what willingness looks like. And if you are willing to coach with me, reach out to me. Let's coach together, even if it's just for a mini session. I want to hear from you, and I want to hear about what challenges you're having and what areas are you saying, Kimmie, I don't know about this, but nevertheless, I am willing. I'll check you guys out next time. Thanks for joining them on the Dynamic Effect. Have a great rest of your week. I'll see you next time, my loves. Take care. Bye-bye.